I'm glad you realized that the pronunciation was wrong. Thank you very much, everyone, for this opportunity. Thanks for staying behind. So I wanted to just chat to you about, the role of the AI, at least in the telco. And every time when I talk about AI, recently, one of the things that I always fight with my youngest son, when he thinks AI, he thinks robots, right? So one of the things we fight about is obviously the balance between TV and YouTube, which I think most of you guys also struggle with. So I said to him, it's time for books. And he says, no, Mama, you don't understand. I already have plans. I know exactly when I'm studying and how I'm studying. And it's almost like a daily fight that we have. But as I was preparing for this presentation, just the AI, one of the things he saw was robot. Now, out of the blue, he starts saying, so Ma, are we ever going to have robot moms, right? And I can already see where this is going, right? Because he's of the view that he always has to remind me that I have a plan. But with a robot mom, doesn't have to be reminded at all. So, and I was very uncomfortable to answer that because obviously I don't want to be replaced, by a robot mom. So what I also just wanted to chat about, every time as I was reflecting on this topic, I had to reflect on the role of telco over the years, right? We started off being in the community age. Community age was all about how do we connect people to each other. We evolved to the information age, where we talk about how do people connect to computers. Now we're at the point where we talk about the coordination age, where it talks to how do we connect the people, the processes, and the things together. So over the years as a telco, I think it's really something that we've also been evolving into, just as much as IT and even our environments, have been evolving. So some of the trends that as a telco we see from a home perspective, for example, we do know that there's, life is now being reimagined differently, considering all the smart things that we're going to start seeing in our homes. There's a new contract for society. We know that data is no longer a nice to have. Actually, in the hierarchy of needs, data is actually starting to be, something that's actually right at the top there. Another way that you can think of it is on the, the business model reinvention. We even see that in our space, right? With the revenues that are plateauing, mobile growth not sitting at double digits growth anymore. We look for partnership. We look at how we can actually grow in other adjacencies, for example. And of course, we are looking at how then do we evolve from a telco, for example, to a techno. New capabilities are being developed in this space. We always look at connected consumer platforms. What are those platforms? B2C type of platforms. What are those B2B type of platforms? What are those cross-industry type of platforms? That we can actually think about. And we think about things that we look at basic, but one of the things we look at is, can an invoice really be explained in a natural language? Is that something that, we could be looking forward to? Could we improve experience by doing real-time sentiment analysis, Could we looking at the hyper-personalized loyalty rewards and find how we can do that, a bit smarter? Now, as a telco, I always say that the Telkom shareholder returns has always been stagnant in these industries for a while, right? A lot of our CAPEX goes into network, a lot of our CAPEX goes into buying handsets. So there's a lot of CAPEX that goes into this. And over time, it's really been difficult to be able to justify the CAPEX versus the return that comes with the CAPEX. Fiber is also one of those. It's really hard to always prove some of those ROIC. And as much as this graph is a little bit old, we're looking about 3-4 years ago, this graph really shows that if you look at other industries, the rest of the industries has probably been, I think if I look at that comparatively to telecommunications always been coming right below when it comes to the average total shareholder return. And if you look at more to your right, even during COVID, you can see that we had a good bump in COVID, but actually before COVID, the gap was always there. After COVID, now that things have actually, become a little bit more stable, that gap actually still exists. Another way to look at it, some of the other issues that we have is if we compare the telcos with the other industries, you can see that when you look at the NPS of most of these industries, they're sitting, look at the detractors, right? Anything between the 10 to 19%, that's the detractors. If you look at the promoters, this is quite healthy. I mean, there's between 51-ish to 65, very, very healthy. But the other way to look at it is here. When you look at telcos, whether it's telcos or it's more the insurance, this picture looks the other way around. We have a lot more detractors that we have, in terms of promoters. So when we're going to be talking around the AI in this world, the AI should actually be helping us to solve for that, right? To really be able to solve for these industries to start having a lot more promoters more than detractors. And if you think about it, the customers that we serve in these sectors are the very same customers that we serve in the previous slide, that we showed you. It's the same community of people, but somehow when they get into the telco, those numbers look very different. Their satisfaction levels are not the same as the satisfaction levels that they get in the other sectors. So we are of the view that when we look at Gen A, it's got a lot of opportunity it's got a lot of space for us to unlock some of those opportunities. Here's some of the values. For example, telecommunication is facing growth challenges, and I think I spoke about that. Look at the ROIC, for example, minus 15.4%. Look at the EBITDA, debt to EBITDA, plus 26%. So where we're looking for Gen A to play a very big role is around, product development. Is there an opportunity for us to be in a position to go to market quite speedily compared to where we are now? Could be looking at improved quality of, services there. And of course, also looking at some of the cost optimization, work productivity, for example, being one of those. If you look at the value chain, especially in the telco, that could probably play a very big role in then ensuring that we improve our EBITDA one way or the other. We are in a position to improve some of our ROICs. We are in a position to obviously improve some of the shareholders as well. As a whole, there's a view, or rather a school of thought, that the industry could unlock around 80 to 100 billion globally. And if you look at the pools there, for example, if you look at the biggest one, I would say, is more in the network side. There's a big opportunity there that we believe AI could probably unlock opportunities there. There's also one around the customer operations, which is also a big one for us. There's a school of thought that if we were to actually deploy AIs in those particular pools, there may be great opportunities for us to be able to turn the growth around for this sector as a whole. There's already evidence, and as you know, all of us are probably fairly new in AI, but there are telcos that are doing POCs on this. There are telcos that are thinking about it. There are telcos that have already done some work on it. And what we've seen that in the customer service, for example, there's views that and those that have actually been through it, they can actually attest to the fact that we have some improvement. There are some improvement that we are seeing. The network being quite a big one, and I'll talk to that also a little bit later. Marketing is also quite huge, right? I'm always of the view that when it comes to marketing, there's always a good spray and pray. You just spray and you just pray somebody actually picks it up. But with AI, we have an opportunity to be able to find ways of how we can personalize some of those marketing opportunities. On the right, it also just gives us a view, and it also just gives us a view around what the Gen AI can do. I mean, on the far right, on the on the productivity side, there's a view that it could probably improve between 35 to 70% incremental economic impact. And then on the left, all the other new Gen AI use cases, there's a view that it could also maybe improve around about 15 to 40%. So the opportunities are there for us, to grab. Now, if you look at AI, it should not be thought of as being implemented in only one particular value chain. If we are looking for results, we're going to have to find a way to deploy it within the entire value chain. Because if you think about it, our customers actually touch the entire value chain. The reason why the value chain exists is because that's how we serve the customer, across the board. So whether it's in the demand forecasting, it's in the pricing, for example, whether it's in the market trend, whether it's in the route optimization from a network perspective, there's good use cases there. So in the demand forecasting, for example, we have the view that it would give us improved decision making. If I look at safety on the far right, we have the view that it could definitely give us some secure service. Customer behavior, for example, it can actually help us in ensuring that we have personalized services for some of those customers. Now, AI in the Gen A, in the customer experience, for example, really has great opportunities for us to make sure that there's a faster resolution time. We have improved first contact, for example, enhanced customer experience and scalability. And how you really achieve that, if you think about it from a call center perspective, some of the opportunities are, for example, before actually the customer calls, because already by the time you call, I know your number, right? I have a sense of who you are. I've got a history of what you called me upon a few days ago, whatever that is. Therefore, there's an opportunity that by the time I pick up the call as an agent, I kind of have some history and I'm not starting afresh, if I can put it like that. And now, if I get to understand the type of problem that you have, from an AI perspective, it actually can guide the agent in terms of what to say. And we no longer would have stagnant scripts for the human agents, to be able to take the customer through. So once again, I think in the customer experience, there are some very interesting use cases, whether it's agent script generation, it's advanced troubleshooting that would be available for the customer to take advantage of. The network optimization, that's usually a very, very big one. I mean, in the network, there is abundance of data, which can be used to actually improve the network optimization. Before the network team can sit and say, well, where are the areas that we need to optimize? From an AI perspective, we have an opportunity for the Gen AI to actually cook this data for us and be able to actually inform the team in terms of areas where there are inefficiencies, areas where they can deploy network much faster, much better, and more efficient. And all of that, when you get such things done, you will definitely see the changes from a customer perspective. That's the beauty about it. You'll be able to measure the impact right, to the customer. I won't go through that. If I look at all the other internal efficiencies, my favorite one is the assistant software development. I think telcos, we always have complicated IT systems, right? So for us to be able to go fast into the market, it takes forever. This is where the AI hopefully would have to help us in unlocking some of these productivities in this space. And yeah, maybe I'll probably even skip that, and I think I probably spoke about it, that whether you touch sales, product, customer, network, admin, and all the other support functions, when you do that, you are creating an opportunity to actually change the customer services, in the telco. An example of a Gen AI opportunity in the order to activation. For example, I work in the fiber environment. So from the time the order comes through to the time the order is provisioned, AI has a role to play. By the time that order comes, for example, the AI there's a capability where it can look at do we have enough resources to be able to deploy, for example, this particular order? By the time you're actually done with that, as from a customer perspective, it can give you some of the payment options, so that you can process the payment for that. And if you already have an ONT in your house, guess what? The AI has an opportunity to be able to actually do the provisioning automatically without even having to send a technician into your home. So usually, I think in the fiber space, look, I mean, it could probably take about 8 days or so to get from an order to an activation. But with the deployment of AI, we have an opportunity to be able to reduce that number to even, more than half. Another opportunity in the telco space lies in the data monetization. We're probably the only industry who has data that talks to where are you, right? And where you are, what's your connection rate? And therefore, the opportunity then lies in us being able to sell some of the data in the various markets. But it is impossible to achieve that if in the telco we are looking at our data in a siloed way. So we almost need to ensure that we work through this graph that I just put there. We move from being siloed to connected to prescriptive, for example, to autonomous. Data in this world is the new oil. For telcos, actually, this is going to be how we can make money as we move along. There is stats around location-based intelligent market. There's a view that this is a market that's actually growing in double digits, for example. And really, when we talk about location-based, we have an opportunity to be able to uplift the safety. For example, we have an opportunity to do some optimization, for example. And again, there's an opportunity here for consumers, for us at least as a telco or even other industries, to have a lot more understanding around their customer behavior. Some of the global players are already playing there, the T-Systems, the O2, for example, they are obviously right a little bit ahead of us in terms of, data monetization. In South Africa, data monetization, I don't think it's something that we understand enough, that we know well enough of. So there's still a lot of opportunities for us to understand it a bit better. The risk, I guess, with the location-based intelligence will always lie into the privacy of the data. I think that's probably the biggest stumbling block that we'll have to actually think about. So harnessing data from multiple sources is an example that I just wanted to give just from a network perspective. Here, there's a platform for us to have data from internal. There's a platform for us to use some of the external data. All this data coming all together is an opportunity for us, to use for location-based. So, for example, in the external data, look at those data points: traffic, weather, human mobility, consumer segment, global demographics, others, Google. So imagine taking that external data, putting it all together with the internal data. Just think about how much power that actually has. To be able to use within the various industries to sell this data to the various industries so that they can do what they do well, These are just some of the use cases for the location-based services. In our world, we already have banks knocking in our world, say, well, is this data that we could have, right? And those are use cases that we would not have even thought about, before. So whether that's in insurance or that's in retail, in-store customer tracking, to utilities, site planning, I'll talk a little bit about the credit scoring, tourism movement, location-based as a service will become something that is powerful, in the time to come. Another interesting one, this one is very close to my heart. If you look at the work that's been done across the industry on, we call it Telcom Pay, it's more on the payment side, right? On the credit scoring. And that's where the banks are starting to knock on our doors, say, can we have such data? And they are no longer using service history as the only information that informs them whether you are eligible for credit or not. Where they are now starting to use even a lot more. They're using data usage. You know, how many times do you actually load data, especially if you're a prepaid customer? They use calling patterns as an input into their analysis. And based on a combination of that then throws up whether you're eligible for any type of credit, for example, you know, in that world. So that has actually it just turned it on its head. While once upon a time, just because you didn't get to pay that car or that house, and that has destroyed you for many years to be able to get a credit, this is now enabling us to be able to look at it very differently and be able to give access of credit, you know, to the market. So yeah, I think that time is coming when we'll be sitting exactly like this next to a robot. I'm uncomfortable about it. I will be very, very honest with you, but I also know that this is where we're actually going. And this is also where we need to talk about the reskilling. I mean, I think one of the biggest fear is around people thinking how they're going to lose their job in this age, you know, of robotics. But we have to be balanced when we talk about it. We have to find a balanced way. We have to find a way of how do we then make sure that there's a coexistence between the people, which is us, humans, and the robotic. And how do we do it in a way that is responsible, not in a way that at the end of the day, when we have achieved all the Gen AI use cases that we have achieved, we've done it at the cost of destroying the socio-economic aspect. So we have to think about it in a lot more balanced way, and not only talk about it, let's not only talk about the positive that it will bring, the revenue and the cost savings and all that, but what does it mean on the other side? It has to be a balanced approach. And by the way, the previous slide, I'm probably talking about the people in this room. How do we retrain you? But there's another category of people who are not literate. You tell me how you train. How do I train my nanny, right? In this space, I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. I put it as a question because I haven't answered it myself. It's something that is always at the back of my mind. So when they say that there will be 10,000 jobs that's going to be lost, but there's an opportunity for us to reskill them, how am I going to do that with my nanny? Those are some of the questions that I ask and say, what does it mean for us in the future? Some of the consideration, I guess, is the effect of employment. I spoke a bit about that. The effect on the societies, it's something that we must continue to reflect. We know that AI will supercharge businesses. We know that it will supercharge businesses. It can still not be done at the cost of the society. Cybersecurity, very inseparable from AI. It cannot be an afterthought. It has to be integrated inside, the AI. There is a lot of unintended consequences of AI. We are not talking about it. We should be talking about it. This is where the policymakers, for example, has to come in and help us. And yeah, I guess for me, what's next, right? The rise of robots, what does it mean? The human rights for robots, what does it mean? And these are questions that I can only leave you with. And when I get an answer, I'll tell you. But when you get an answer, please tell me as well. With that in mind, I really want to thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Please give it a big round of applause. And